Hey everybody, welcome to the next episode of Azure Flash News. Today we're going to be talking to Matt Lunzer, one of the CSAs in Minneapolis, about a new capability coming out into preview called Azure Firewall Premium. Hello everybody and welcome to the next episode of Azure Flash News. As you can see here, we've got a guest with us today, Matt Lunzer. How's it going, Matt?
Going well. How are you, Mark?
I'm doing good. Hey Rick, how's it going?
It's going well. Hey, I was thinking, I think we should actually do like a Friends intro where we're all dancing to the music instead of just listening to the music.
Oh yeah.
Although I can't dance. So I guess it's just going to be you and Matt.
I think we should do the Balky Happy Dance or something. I don't know.
Oh, yeah. Oh, my gosh. We just dated ourselves right there because I know what you're talking about.
Yes, you do.
The Macarena. How about that?
Yeah.
Oh,
hey.
Everybody shiver.
Yeah, that's right. So today we're going to be talking about Azure Firewall Premium. Matt, why don't you just give us a little bit of information on kind of what we're going to talk about today?
Sure. So what we're going to cover today is Azure Firewall Premium, which is a new preview offering that is an enhancement on an existing offering called Azure Firewall.
Cool.
Awesome. And Azure Firewall has been around for a while, right? It's not. So this is a whole new set of capabilities that builds on top of the pre-existing solution set that's out there today. Is that a fair statement?
That is a fair statement, and
Okay.
that maybe is a good segue for me to kind of start to introduce what Firewall Premium is. So yes, Azure Firewall Standard has been in place for some time, and Azure Firewall Premium is an enhancement, if you will, of what Azure Firewall Standard has to offer. So we'll talk about why do we think we need Firewall Premium. In addition to that, we'll decompose some of the feature sets that Azure Firewall Premium brings in its offering. So without further ado, let's dive into that.
Let's do it.
Awesome.
So why do we need Premium? We have Standard. Rick, to your point, Azure Firewall Standard has been in place for a couple of years. It's a managed firewall offering. It's a stateful packet inspection firewall. And it does a really good job at what it's tasked with doing. But what we've come to learn from customers and maybe from the market in general is that Azure Firewall Standard lacks some next generation firewall features.
So if I'm hearing you correctly, this is kind of like Spinal Tap, where we're saying, why go to 11? Why not just make 10 louder? So this is the 11 on Spinal Tap. I love it.
That's right. I love the Spinal Tap plug. It's been a long time since I've watched that, but now I'm going to have to go back and watch Spinal Tap. And when that scene comes up, Rick, I'm going to recall this comment.
Absolutely.
So back in the day, Checkpoint in the 90s released a firewall that was a stateful packet inspection appliance. This firewall, by the way, ran on Windows, which is kind of interesting because firewalls today don't run on Windows, and I don't know that they'll enterprise-grade firewalls will run on Windows again. But anyways, a stateful packet inspection firewall did a great job at managing the state, much like an application must manage state.
Matt, what are you trying to say about Windows?
Windows is fantastic, but I think we've come to learn that a lot of these network appliances are really designed to operate on Linux-based platforms. So it's just kind of a funny anecdotal to think about a firewall running on Windows, but it really speaks to the partnership that exists back then. But regardless, next generation features, I think, are an acknowledgement that a stateful packet inspection appliance that says, if I allow you through, I'm going to allow you back in, managing a state, just isn't enough for today's security. So what that means is a lot of the network security vendors in this space have created a slew of new features that really have amplified the security and the defense and depth posture of customers in the enterprise, like SSL termination. So in other words, being able to encrypt and decrypt packets and interrogate that payload. Traffic filtering, not necessarily based upon FQDN, but maybe based upon URL. So an enhanced level of filtering of traffic. In addition to that, having kind of a centralized management construct, so a singular tool to manage a fleet of firewalls versus managing your firewall landscape, firewall by firewall, or kind of independently. So.
And that's not enterprise, right? I mean, if you're
That's not
managing a one-off, that's not an enterprise solution,
Yeah.
right? I mean,
right. So all of this kind of formulates itself is why we are delivering Firewall Premium. And what you see with asterisks here and kind of put around the red rectangle are features that we are going to be delivering. So
awesome.
Let's talk about the first one here. The first one is enhanced visibility. And what does that really mean? What enhanced visibility is essentially delivering a forward proxy in a device that performs TLS traffic inspection. So we commonly call this in the security world a man-in-the-middle type scenario. Yeah. Yep. And what that means is over on the left-hand side of this illustration is you have an end user that's trying to access a website, which is on the right hand of that illustration. And that traffic that's being sent is encrypted. Right. It's a very common thing these days, right?
Because normally the end user, they would encrypt their traffic on the way to website.com using website.com's encryption, and only the end user and the website would be able to decrypt that.
That's right. And that principle still holds true here, but what Firewall Premium does and what TLS inspection does, forward proxy decryption, is it decrypts that packet, interrogates it for security, and then re-encrypts that packet to its destination. So it's a proxy in the sense that it kind of sits as an in-between, decrypts and re-encrypts that traffic with the intent of being able to look at the data, the payload, if you will, not the data, but basically to look at the traffic and ensure that it's secure, and also to add some additional capabilities. And that's kind of really high level here I'm speaking. We're not trying to get into the bowels of TLS inspection, but that's what it's doing. And we often term this man in the middle. So conceptually, think about Azure Firewall being that device between the user and the web server, and performing this function to add an additional layer of security and to offer some additional features.
Yeah,
gotcha.
And I just was going to add one more thing. So on the left-hand side of this picture here, if you don't mind going back for a second, it's the enterprise network. So there's an end user sitting in a corporate network. The firewall is the way out of that corporate network for somebody to get to this firewall, or to get to this website.
That's right. So in Azure parlance, Azure Firewall Premium would be deployed into a virtual network. In all likelihood, it would exist inside of a hub virtual network. That's the concept of a hub and spoke topology, where we typically deploy our security appliances inside the hub. Yep. And there is a request to leave that virtual network and go out to a public network like the internet. That traffic is forced through Azure Firewall by a route configuration, and Azure Firewall then performs that TLS inspection on behalf of the enterprise to help secure that traffic.
No, that's awesome. So this is the antithesis of a reverse proxy when things coming in, right? I mean,
you're 100% right. So where we would call this forward proxy, like an Azure Application Gateway or Azure Front Door, might be called a reverse proxy. So conceptually, same thing. But not for hosting internet-facing applications. Instead, this is used for, when resources inside of Azure need to break out to the internet. So kind of a reverse concept in that sense.
Gotcha. A reverse proxy.
Yeah. So these are the advantages that Firewall Premium brings: enhanced visibility. Focus on the bolds here. We'll go through these piece by piece as we go. Some URL filtering capabilities, intrusion detection and prevention, and then threat intelligence, which is fused into Azure Firewall Standard. Microsoft's threat intelligence fused into Azure Firewall Standard is amplified because of the enhanced visibility that Firewall Premium offers. More visibility to the traffic. So what does traffic filtering look like? This is a really rudimentary example, but again, I'm just trying to cement some of these topics here. So given that we're gaining additional visibility into the traffic, Azure Firewall Premium can now basically filter according to the full URL rather than the FQDN. So a real simple example here, which I'll cement with a real life example, is we can, perhaps allow traffic to contoso.com/secure instead of just contoso.com. So it's an added layer of filtering that allows us to enhance the capabilities that Firewall Premium has to offer. And what does that look like? So here I'm on a workstation, Windows 10 workstation, and this workstation happens to be configured very similarly to the diagram that we saw a couple of slides ago, where when this workstation has to go to the internet or to a web server, it has to go through Azure Firewall Premium. And using the URL filtering as a simple example, I'm going to here, NewYorkTimes.com. And we can see that this is going to /section/world. Now, in this scenario, Azure Firewall Premium is doing that TLS traffic inspection. It's got enhanced visibility to the traffic, and I've configured a rule that has allowed this traffic through. However, and this isn't necessarily an enterprise example, but let's say, for example, I didn't want my end users to be able to go to like the business section. Maybe this would be something more meaningful in the enterprise. But in this case, what this is really trying to show is the fact that there is not an application rule that allows traffic to this URL.
Full URL,
so it is disallowed, and it's informing the user of the fact that this is being denied by policy.
And all the way down. And so maybe actually it'd be better if we did section/funnies or something,
comics,
the comics or whatever.
Yeah.
I realize this isn't probably a real practical scenario for the enterprise. In fact, maybe you would allow people access to the business section of the New York Times and not allow section to the world, to the world section. I don't know, but don't miss the headline here. What this is really allowing us to do is a greater level of URL filtering, which was not previously possible with Firewall Standard.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's much more fine-grained.
So this is an example of what that capability looks like.
That's great.
Okay, I should add it applies to both HTTP and HTTPS traffic, with the asterisk being TLS inspection is required for the HTTPS traffic to be treated the same. Okay. All right. Intrusion detection and prevention. So another feature that wasn't available in Azure Firewall Standard was intrusion detection and prevention. Well, with the enhanced visibility that we have with Premium, we have introduced that capability into Firewall Premium. So first thing is, it's in line. So all of the intrusion detection and prevention capabilities that exist within Firewall Premium are in line to the firewall itself. So as traffic goes in and out of Azure Firewall Premium, it is using that inline feature to interrogate that traffic. What does it do? Well, an intrusion detection and prevention system looks at that traffic and tries to detect malicious activity. And if it detects that malicious activity, it has the ability to either log the fact that traffic looks malicious but allow it, or log the fact that traffic is malicious and block it. So it can actually institute a block.
And so
you can configure it both ways, right? So you can say audit and allow or audit and block, basically, right?
That's right.
And I was just going to add one more thing. And this malicious activity we're talking about here is probably, in this case, we're actually not talking about people coming through the firewall from the outside to the inside. We're actually talking about malicious activity, which is essentially data exfiltration.
Oh, good point.
Right? Isn't that kind of or like authentication or connecting back to a control domain or something like
Command
that, right?
Control, yep.
Right. That's right. I mean, harken back to the illustration. This is a forward proxy service. So we've got assets either in the data center or in Azure, in likelihood in Azure, that are routing internet traffic or outbound traffic through Azure Firewall Premium. It's interrogating that traffic and looking for, malicious byte sequences that are commonly used by malware. And this is kind of an important point, because what that means is, in most IDPSs, in fact, all of them operate this way to my knowledge, it's signature driven. So it has a signature database of known malware attacks that the intrusion detection and prevention system will identify and detect and log or block. So it does have to be a known quantity, but it's a very powerful capability in that it can be a part of a broader defense and depths and implementation for a customer to have additional protections against malicious traffic, such as what might be detected in a particular malware scenario.
Awesome.
One other thing to note is that Firewall Premium does bypass inspection for services like Office 365 in some of in Azure's platform services. Customers will have the ability to implement their own exceptions, and this is important for a couple of reasons. For one, some systems like Office 365 have the ability to really detect the fact that there's this man in the middle performing decryption and encryption scenarios, and that can cause problems using that service. Secondarily, enterprises or customers might say, I don't want you to perform TLS inspection when employees go to banking sites. I don't want any liability associated with that. So
Right.
I'm going to categorize sites that are associated with services like that and disallow that from happening. So you have flexibility here. But in the event that an intrusion detection and prevention system is important to you, you can enable that and it will perform its job. So here's an example to cement what that looks like. Back to our virtual machine, which is routing traffic through Azure Firewall Premium. And in this case, we're not looking at URL filtering. We're looking at the IDPS capabilities. So again, a basic example. Let's say this can even be an intranet site. In this case, that's what this is. Yep. So you notice in my browser, I go to this URL and I get a hello world back. So this was a successful attempt to access this website. However, let's say, for example, we've got malicious activity taking place. Maybe a workstation's been compromised or otherwise. And in that scenario, I've got traffic that's going to this site through Azure Firewall Premium that's injecting a malicious user agent. In this case, Black Sun.
And so
apparently that's a well-known user agent that has done malicious activities before. And there is a signature in the IDPS database that will detect this and act upon it.
Yeah, and so you're just using
scenario,
curl. You're just adding a flag here in curl to hit that URL, adding this user agent string so that way the IDPS can see it, right?
Yeah, you're faking
That's right. Yep. So curl -a meaning agent. I'm putting in the agent string Black Sun, and then notice the URL is the same URL as I have within the browser. Yep. Now, what's happening here is I'm not getting a hello world back. I would expect to see that immediately with this curl command. But the fact that I've injected this user agent, Black Sun, into this curl command, and this is going through Azure Firewall Premium, which has the IDPS database signatures, if you will, that have are aware of the fact that this is a malicious user agent, it's disallowing that from happening. So it's effectively blocking it. Okay. Wow. So that's an example of what that might look like.
And when does this finish? Like, does it time out eventually?
Will eventually time out. Yeah. I don't know what the timeout is, but it will disallow connectivity and it will time out and return me back to the command prompt with some indicator message, not from Firewall Premium, but I think locally with the message that curl has timed out.
Yeah, and the connection was refused or dropped or something to that effect, I would imagine, right?
Yeah, and I've heard of, and I have an idea what it's doing here because I've talked to customers about this, and they tend not to. Whenever you detect something malicious, you don't tell the client that it's malicious. You don't give them the information.
I found you out.
Right.
Yeah.
You just they just called it. I can't remember what they call it. Just basically, you're just sending it to
black hole.
You're black holing it. You just don't respond. You don't say anything. You just let it time out. So that way, you're not even giving them a response that you knew that they were malicious.
Right. Yeah, and that's exactly what's happening here. So this command will time out. I will return to a command prompt. It won't successfully connect. So in this case, the IDPS database and Azure Firewall Premium has done its job, and it's protected this perhaps malicious attempt from accessing, this URL.
Right. Cool.
So it also offers web category filtering. So we talked about URL filtering, where I can allow or disallow access to a URL based upon its full URL string, I guess, for lack of a better term. In concert with that, it offers web category filtering. So this is kind of what we would expect, and this has been commonplace for a long time. But what it basically means is we can allow or disallow access to websites based upon the categorization that website falls into. So some simple examples are, I want to disallow access to gambling websites. I don't want to allow people to go and visit gambling websites on company time or from their, enterprise managed workstation, whatever the case might be. Social media, obviously, is a category that's pretty hot these days and could be one that you would block, and others. It's also fine-tuned. So what does that mean? What that means is when you look at the second bullet point, notice how, because Azure Firewall Premium is got this enhanced visibility, that it actually can detect if someone's going to google.com/news and you're disallowing access to perhaps news websites, that it can block access to that URL, but still allow access to google.com. So again, that's that big pivot based upon that enhanced visibility that will allow us to graduate, if you will, from FQDN filtering, which is something that you can do with Firewall Standard today, to URL filtering and web content filtering, which you can do with Firewall Premium based upon that enhanced capability set. And because of that, we've seen this great proliferation due to COVID, right, of people deploying large virtual desktop, Windows virtual desktop platform. And I think Microsoft, if I recall this correctly, did like 30,000 desktops in 2 days on Windows Virtual Desktop to enable a remote workforce. Just incredible. But that's beside the point. But what I was trying to pull that into is that, when you're using a virtual desktop in Azure, it would be nice to have the ability to do web content filtering if that's something that you happen to have available in the desktop that you're providing to your employees. Right. So
the other nice thing about
being a really neat feature that commingles with that.
The nice thing about this is when you look at the example, google.com versus google.com/news, effectively what we're saying is, and this is, I'm not a fan of this saying, but it matches the scenario exactly, is we're not throwing the baby out with the bathwater.
Right.
Because these are, and like to your point, the FQDN is not shouldn't be your trust boundary. Your trust boundary in this case is content filtering based on a subset of that canonical resource. So you can still get useful resources. You can still go to without, because let's be honest, a lot of these sites today, including Google and others and Bing, they're portals or landing zones, but with other areas of content. And the landing zone in and of itself is useful, but those other areas of content might not either be productivity, or they might be not appropriate for work, or whatever the reason. So this fine-grained tuning capability is really nice to avoid those scenarios where it's an all or nothing kind of knife switch scenario.
Yep, that's exactly right. So this will deliver that added flexibility, and I think prove to some customers and some enterprises to be a really interesting solution that perhaps solves something that they weren't able to deliver otherwise with standard. Now we're pivoting into architecture, but before I do that, I will show a little bit about what Firewall Premium will actually look like from a UI perspective.
Cool.
So what I'm showing now is the Azure portal, and here you can see I've got firewall policy. Actually, I should make a comment on that. So Azure Firewall Premium requires management by Azure Firewall Manager, which abstracts the policy configuration from the resource. So what that means is this is that centralized tool that you can use to manage a fleet of firewalls rather than managing firewalls on a firewall by firewall basis. And what this you're looking at here is a policy that I've created with Azure Firewall Manager that in return I've applied to a set of firewalls.
Right.
Oh, that's so cool.
That's so nice.
Yeah, so it is really nice. And what you'll see here are some new capabilities that you do not see in standard. So, for example, TLS inspection. So what you'll see with TLS inspection in this preview offering is the fact that you can either disable it in totality or enable it. And once you enable it, you configure a certificate that you want to use to perform that TLS inspection. So this is typically either a public or a private PKI certificate that you've applied to Azure Firewall Premium that is effectively helping and facilitating the TLS traffic inspection. And this is an example of how you configure that. Now, something you might notice on the screen is that the certificate has to be stored in Key Vault. So if you deploy Azure Firewall Premium, you have to deploy Azure Key Vault, and that's where the certificate lives, which hopefully doesn't surprise anyone. But that's,
I was going to say, you should be doing this if you're not.
Yeah.
Right, you should be doing this if you're not. And with Firewall Premium, it does force you to do that.
Gotcha.
So that it kind of imposes that best practice.
Yep.
This is a little bit about what the intrusion detection and prevention system looks like. So notice you can configure it as disabled, turn it off, alert, which means it logs, but it doesn't actually do anything with the traffic, and alert and deny, which will log and actually deny that traffic. Now, what you might have noticed is that curl command was blocked. Okay,
yeah, I was going to ask about that.
It didn't succeed, even though this is configured with alert. And that's because you can actually configure very granularly down to the individual IDPS signature of the action that you want to take. So that curl command, which did not succeed, was detected by this IDPS signature, and I've configured that for a deny. So this gives you flexibility to manage the IDPS signature rule set and configure it in accordance to your requirements to give you some added flexibility.
So that lets you set the default on the radio button on the other one, and then you can specify any more additional after that on this screen. Actually, you can say, you can set the default to alert and deny over there, but actually come back, and some of these you can set actually back to just alert or vice versa.
Yep, exactly.
Okay.
So a lot of customization there. And in addition to that, you can bypass. So if you want to bypass and not have IDPS mode applied whatsoever to a certain traffic type, you can do that. The last thing I'll show, and this kind of ties back to the TLS inspection, is you configure the rule set on Azure Firewall Premium. Notice that when you configure a rule, you can either configure TLS inspection or not. So if, for example, you've got traffic that is going to, a banking site, and here you can see web categories. I can choose a category that I might allow through Azure Firewall Premium, but I don't want to allow, traffic inspection to take place. If that's the case, and there's a ton of different choices here in these categories, my intent isn't to show them all, but just to give you an idea that you can do it by category in addition to explicit URL, and you can configure to perform TLS traffic inspection or not. So that's the last facet, really, of Azure Firewall Premium that coincides with the different features of Azure Firewall Premium that we just went through over the last 15 minutes.
Yeah.
Very cool. Now, if you were set to block tasteless websites, does that mean that we would be blocked?
I saw tasteless too.
Let's configure that, Rick, and please share your URL with the audience, and let's see if it works. And that'll tell us whether it's effectively blocking access to tasteless websites or not.
Well, I was.
Some of those rules, the categories you kind of laugh at, but it's
let's be honest. This is all in serious. This is defense in depth. This is, creating a stricter security posture, which in this day and age, we all seem to, we can never have enough, right? I mean, we're seeing the state-sponsored stuff happening. We're seeing the script kiddies. We're seeing all this proliferation of people, breaching systems. And I don't care how secure you think you are. Really, we say there's two types of people in the world, right? Those that have been breached and those that don't know they've been breached. So anything we can do to increase that security posture or depth defense in depth is really, it's critical these days.
Yeah, it really is.
Right.
It really is.
So let's round this off real quickly with probably not something that's the core focus of this presentation, but just to make people aware that Azure Firewall Premium, from an architectural design perspective, if you're thinking about, deploying this in your environment, the design patterns are the same. You're going to deploy it with a similar design pattern with how you would deploy Azure Firewall Standard, or even like a firewall from the ISV ecosystem. In all likelihood, it's going to exist in some type of hub and spoke architecture and, be a place that's centrally accessible from where your workloads exist. So don't overthink that aspect of it. It is going to be very like for like from a design perspective with what you've done, with your previous firewall deployments in our platform.
Yep.
This is awesome.
Yeah. And that kind of wraps it up. The public preview is available. Log into the portal, give it a spin it down when you're done using it. But please take a look at it if this is something that's of interest to you. I think you'll find it to be a really amazing addition to the Azure Firewall family, and hopefully this session gave you some insight into what the capabilities are and perhaps how to get started.
Matt, do you know?
No, this is awesome.
Matt, do you know if we'll be able to upgrade from standard to premium, or if we'll have to redeploy? Do you know?
So it's in preview. So this is everything that we've talked about today is subject to change. We probably should add that caveat. But here's what I'll say, Mark, is that given that Firewall Premium is doing TLS inspection, that means it's doing a lot of encryption and decryption activities, these mathematical computations, which are incredibly CPU intensive. So what that means is that Firewall Premium runs on a different piece of hardware than Firewall Standard runs on. So what that is to imply is that you would deploy Azure Firewall Premium in parallel to Standard if you were to have those kind of coexist. There's no direct upgrade path at this point. Okay. Although, again, with it being in preview, that's always subject to change, but it would be a deployment of a new firewall in order to support Premium.
Yeah, my guess is that these would probably leverage more heavily like a physical HSM type of component, or maybe we've got some field programmable gate arrays that are actually doing crypto stuff that aren't necessarily available on the standard SKU. I mean, I can only speculate, but it makes sense that we would have to probably do some kind of a replacement kind of scenario. Yeah. But I just like the fact that it plugs into your current model. There's not a big, change or shift in the physical topology to make that change.
Yeah.
That's right. Yep.
What? Well, that's
awesome.
This is awesome. Matt, thank you so much for giving us, giving us all a head start on this. And for all of the viewers out there, just don't forget you heard it here first. And we really appreciate Matt going and doing the work and getting ready for all of that for us, so we can kind of hear about it right after the preview is announced. So thanks for that, Matt. We really appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me, guys. Really appreciate it. It's been fun.
Well, I guess that wraps up the show. We'll ask you first, Matt. So if people want to get a hold of you after the show and ask you any follow-up questions, is there any way people can do that? Ways people can find you out on the interwebs?
Yeah, feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn if you would like. I should be, easily findable. Is that a word? Discoverable on LinkedIn. So feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn and send me a message on LinkedIn. Or my email address is matt.lunzer, Lunzer, at Microsoft.com. And I welcome any comments or questions that you have regarding this video.
Yeah. Awesome. And Rick, if people want to catch you after the show, how would they do that?
Yep, per my usual, you can reach me at Rick, W-E-Y, at Microsoft.com, or, of course, I am monitoring the Azure Flash News Twitter handle, so feel free to basically message us, and we would certainly get back to you. And Mark, how about yourself?
If people want to catch me, Twitter's a good way to do that, at mgarner on Twitter, or you can email me at Microsoft. My email address is mgarner@microsoft.com. And for all of those of you watching on the show, I already know that most of you are not subscribers. So
please subscribe.
So please subscribe, like this video, and we really appreciate it because it helps us get better search results. It helps other people find what we're doing. So we really appreciate it. So Thanks for that for everybody. And, Rick, you want to sign us out?
Absolutely. So thanks for the time. We always appreciate it. And until next time, keep your fingers on your sanitized keyboard and your mask face and your head in the clouds.
Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.